I accidentally trapped an alien girl. She thought I'd eat her. You won't believe what happened. The crash and capture. The emergency klaxons screamed through the research vessel Pioneer's Edge as Marcus Chen fought desperately with the failing navigation controls. Outside the reinforced viewport, the violent solar storm painted space in sheets of deadly radiation that had already fried half his ship's systems. His engineering training kicked in automatically, hands flying over backup controls as he tried to coax power from the dying engines. "Come on, baby. Just a little more," he muttered through gritted teeth, sweat beading on his dark hair despite the ship's failing life support. The vessel shuddered violently as another electromagnetic pulse washed over them, and Marcus watched in horror as his last functioning thruster sputtered and died. The planet below rushed up to meet him far too quickly. Through the static-filled screens he could make out a world of purple-tinted forests and silver rivers, beautiful in any other circumstance. Now it represented either salvation or death. Marcus strapped himself in and activated the emergency beacon, though he doubted anyone would receive it through this cosmic maelstrom. The crash was violent but survivable, thanks to the ship's emergency systems and Marcus's quick thinking in choosing a relatively soft landing zone near a forest clearing. When the dust settled and the groaning metal finally went quiet, Marcus found himself battered but alive in the wreckage of his life's work. The Pioneer's Edge had been his mobile laboratory, packed with experimental technology for studying uncharted worlds. Now it was twisted metal and sparking circuits. Marcus spent the first day taking inventory of his situation. The ship's fabrication unit still worked, though at reduced capacity. He had emergency rations for 2 weeks, basic tools, and his engineering knowledge. Most importantly, his portable workshop had survived the crash intact, giving him the ability to create whatever he might need for long-term survival. The planet itself seemed welcoming enough. The atmosphere was breathable with only slight differences in oxygen content. The gravity was comfortable, and initial scans showed no immediately dangerous pathogens. The purple-leafed trees reached impressive heights, their crystalline bark reflecting the light of the system's binary suns. Strange bird-like creatures with iridescent feathers called from the canopy, while small, deer-like animals grazed in the clearings on what appeared to be nutritious blue-green vegetation. By the third day, Marcus had established a functional camp. His engineering background served him well as he cannibalized parts from the ship to create a comfortable shelter, complete with power generation from a jury-rigged solar array. The fabrication unit helped him create basic furniture and tools, while his natural ingenuity filled in the gaps with clever improvisations. Food became his primary concern. The emergency rations wouldn't last forever, and he needed to learn what local wildlife was safe to eat. His scanner could analyze basics, nutritional content, but the real challenge was catching the quick, cautious creatures that inhabited the forest. This led Marcus to one of humanity's oldest solutions: traps. Using his engineering knowledge, Marcus designed a series of increasingly sophisticated snares and pitfall traps. They were marvels of simple mechanics, using local materials enhanced with salvage technology from his ship. Motion sensors triggered releases while electromagnetic fields could be activated to create humane capture areas. Each trap was a small masterpiece of human ingenuity, combining ancient hunting wisdom with advanced engineering principles. The traps worked beautifully, providing Marcus with a steady supply of food while allowing him to study the local ecosystem. He was particularly proud of his latest creation, a containment field generator that could harmlessly immobilize creatures without causing injury. It represented the best of human innovation: practical, efficient, and surprisingly compassionate. On the morning of his 10th day on the planet, Marcus was checking his traps when he heard something that made him stop dead in his tracks. Instead of the usual animal sounds, he clearly heard what sounded like sobbing, not just any crying, but distinctly intelligent emotional distress that spoke of consciousness and fear. Following the sound, Marcus discovered his most advanced trap had indeed caught something, but not the small game he expected. Suspended in the glowing containment field about 2 meters off the ground was the most extraordinary being he had ever seen. She was humanoid but clearly alien, with skin that shifted between pale blue and silvery white depending on the light. Her hair was long and seemed to move with a life of its own, flowing in patterns that defied the gentle breeze. Most striking were her eyes, large and violet, currently wide with terror, as they fixed on Marcus's approaching form. She wore a form-fitting suit that seemed to be made of living metal, adapting to her movements and somehow enhancing her already graceful appearance. When she spotted Marcus, the alien's crying intensified, and she began speaking rapidly in a melodious language that sounded like wind chimes mixed with flowing water. Though he couldn't understand the words, the tone was unmistakably pleading. Marcus raised his hands in what he hoped was a universal gesture of peace and spoke softly. "Hey, it's okay. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm just as surprised as you are." The alien woman stopped speaking abruptly, her violet eyes widening further. Then, to Marcus's amazement, she switched to accented but clear English. "Please, honored predator, I did not mean to trespass in your hunting grounds. I know humans consume other sentient beings, but I beg you to consider that my species has very little nutritional value. We are mostly mineral-based and would likely taste terrible." Marcus blinked in astonishment. "I'm sorry, what? You think I'm going to eat you?" "Is that not what humans do?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Our scholars teach that humans are the apex predators of their region of space, consuming everything in their path, including other intelligent species." Despite the surreal situation, Marcus couldn't help but laugh. It wasn't a cruel laugh, but one of genuine disbelief and irony. "Lady, I hate to break it to you, but your scholars got some seriously wrong information. We're not actually in the habit of eating people we can have conversations with." The alien's expression shifted from terror to confusion. "You are not going to consume me?" "Definitely not," Marcus assured her, walking closer to examine the trap controls. "Though I have to admit, this is the first time I've caught someone who could actually tell me they didn't want to be caught. Hold still, I'll get you down." As Marcus worked on the containment field controls, the alien watched him with fascination, replacing her fear. "You are remarkably different from what we were taught about humans. The stories speak of savage creatures driven only by hunger and aggression." "Yeah, well, stories have a way of getting exaggerated," Marcus replied, carefully, adjusting the field parameters. "I'm Marcus, by the way, Marcus Chen, and you are?" "I am called Zara of the Third Reef," she said, then gasped as the containment field suddenly released. Marcus was ready, catching her easily as she fell. For a moment, they were close enough that he could see the intricate patterns that seemed to move just beneath her skin, like living circuits of light. "Thank you," Zara said softly, steadying herself as Marcus set her gently on her feet. She was tall, nearly matching his own height, and moved with a fluid grace that was utterly mesmerizing. "I am in your debt, Marcus Chen of the humans." "No debt necessary," Marcus said with a smile. "Though I am curious about what brought you to my neck of the woods. This doesn't exactly seem like a well-traveled area." Zara's expression darkened, slightly. "I was fleeing. My people have rigid ways, and I have always asked too many questions. When I expressed interest in actually studying humans rather than simply accepting the old teachings, I was marked for mandatory neural adjustment." "Neural adjustment?" Marcus frowned. "That doesn't sound pleasant." "It is not. They would remove my curiosity, my tendency to question. I would become compliant and useful to the collective, but I would no longer be myself." Zara looked around the forest clearing, then back at Marcus with renewed wonder. "But perhaps this encounter is fate. You are living proof that everything we thought we knew about humans is wrong." Marcus gestured toward his camp, visible through the trees. "Well, if you're interested in studying humans, you've got a perfect subject right here. Fair warning, though, I'm probably not the most typical example. Most humans don't end up crash-landed on alien worlds." Zara's eyes lit up with excitement, the violet depths sparkling with intelligence and curiosity. "You crashed here? Then you are stranded like me. Perhaps we can help each other." As they walked toward Marcus's shelter, Zara marveled at the ingenious modifications he had made to create a comfortable living space. The blend of salvage technology and practical engineering impressed her scientific mind. while the very human touches, small decorations, and personal items revealed an emotional depth her people's teachings never mentioned. "This is remarkable," she said, running her fingers along a workbench where Marcus had been crafting new tools. "The efficiency and adaptability you've shown in such a short time. Our models predicted that humans without their technology would quickly perish." "We're pretty good at making do," Marcus said with pride. "It's kind of our thing. We see a problem, we figure out a solution. Sometimes it's elegant, sometimes it's held together with determination and spare parts, but it usually works." Zara smiled for the first time since he'd found her, and Marcus was struck by how it transformed her entire face. The fear was gone, replaced by wonder, and something that might have been hope. "I begin to understand why my questions about humans troubled the council so much," she said. "If they are wrong about this, what else might they be wrong about?" As the day progressed, Marcus and Zara found themselves drawn into long conversations about their respective species and cultures. Each revelation challenged assumptions and opened new possibilities. Neither knew it yet, but their accidental meeting would change not just their own lives, but the destiny of both their civilizations. The trap that had brought them together was just the beginning of a much larger story, one that would prove that sometimes the most important discoveries happen when you're not looking for them at all. Understanding and trust. The twin suns were setting, painting the alien sky in shades of amber and rose, when Marcus finished preparing what he hoped would be a safe meal for his unexpected guest. He had spent the afternoon running tests on various local fruits and vegetables while Zara observed with scientific fascination, taking notes on a device that seemed to be made of liquid crystal. "Your approach to nutritional analysis is remarkably thorough for someone working with primitive equipment," Zara commented, watching Marcus use his scanner to check the chemical composition of a bright orange fruit he'd discovered near a stream. Marcus chuckled as he sliced the fruit, revealing flesh that sparkled like gems. "Primitive is a relative term. This scanner might look basic compared to your technology, but it's kept me alive so far. Besides, sometimes simple tools are more reliable than complex ones." Zara accepted the offered fruit slice cautiously, then bit into it. Her eyes widened in surprise. "This is delicious. The flavor complexity is remarkable. How did you know it? Would be safe for my physiology?" "Lucky guess, actually," Marcus admitted. "Your reaction to the other foods suggested our biochemistry isn't that different. Plus, you mentioned being mineral-based earlier, and this fruit has high mineral content. Sometimes intuition works better than data." As they ate together in the warm glow of Marcus's improvised lighting system, Zara began to share more about her people and why she was really on this planet. The Valathi, as her species was called, lived in vast underwater cities on their homeworld. They were an ancient civilization, organized around collective knowledge and rigid social hierarchies. "We are taught from birth that our way is the only correct way," Zara explained, her skin shifting to deeper blue tones as she spoke. "Questioning established knowledge is seen as dangerous, potentially destabilizing to our social order. But I could never accept that. How can we grow if we never challenge what we think we know?" Marcus nodded, understanding the frustration in her voice. "Sounds familiar. Humans have had the same problem throughout our history. The difference is we eventually learned that questioning things is how we progress. Some of our greatest achievements came from people who refused to accept that something was impossible." "Tell me about human achievements," Zara said, leaning forward with genuine interest. "Not the frightening tales we were told, but the truth." Marcus found himself describing human space exploration, scientific discoveries, and cultural developments. He spoke of the first moon landing, of the development of medicine that could cure diseases once thought incurable, of art and music that moved people to tears. As he talked, he watched Zara's expression transform from curiosity to amazement, to something approaching awe. "We built the first settlement on Mars using nothing but determination and recycled materials," Marcus explained, his eyes bright with the passion that had driven him to become an engineer. "Everyone said it was impossible, that humans weren't meant to live on other worlds. We proved them wrong. The council taught us that humans were destructive and primitive, Zara said softly. But everything you describe speaks of creativity and cooperation. Your species works together to achieve impossible things. We have our problems, Marcus admitted honestly. We fight, we make mistakes, we sometimes let fear guide us instead of hope. But we also keep trying. We never give up, even when everything seems hopeless. As if to emphasize his point, a strange howling echoed through the forest night. Both Marcus and Zara tensed, listening to the haunting sound that seemed to come from multiple directions at once. "What is that?" Zara whispered, her skin shifting to pale silver in what Marcus was beginning to recognize as a fear response. Marcus was already moving, checking his perimeter sensors, and grabbing a makeshift weapon he'd crafted from ship components. "I don't know, but it doesn't sound friendly. Can your people track you?" "Yes," Zara admitted, her voice tight with worry. "I disabled my personal beacon, but if they brought deep scan equipment, they could detect my biosignature from orbit." The howling came again, closer this time, and Marcus caught sight of shapes moving between the trees. They weren't the search party he'd feared, but something potentially worse. Large predatory creatures with bioluminescent markings were approaching the camp, drawn perhaps by the smell of food or simply curious about the unusual energy signatures from Marcus's equipment. "Stay behind me," Marcus said quietly, his engineers' mind already calculating options. "These look like pack hunters. They're testing us, looking for weakness." Zara watched in fascination as Marcus quickly activated several devices around the perimeter of his camp. Bright lights flared to life, creating a barrier of illumination that made the approaching creatures hesitate. At the same time, he activated sonic emitters that produced a low-frequency hum that seemed to make the predators uncomfortable. "Clever," Zara breathed. "You're using their natural instincts against them. Pack hunters typically avoid areas that seem defended by unknown threats." "Exactly. Sometimes you don't need to be stronger than your enemy," Marcus said, making small adjustments to the sound frequency based on the creature's reactions. "You just need to be smarter." The strategy worked. After several tense minutes, the pack moved on in search of easier prey. As the immediate danger passed, Marcus noticed that Zara was looking at him with new respect. "Your tactical thinking is impressive," she said. "Our military strategists spend years learning to assess threats and respond appropriately. You did it instinctively." "Humans are adaptable," Marcus replied, beginning to power down the defensive systems to conserve energy. "We've had to be. Our evolution was shaped by being physically outmatched by most of the things that wanted to eat us. We learned to use tools, to think ahead, to cooperate." Zara helped him secure the camp for the night, and Marcus was impressed by her quick understanding of his improvised systems. Her own knowledge of energy manipulation and materials science complemented his engineering skills perfectly. "Your people have remarkable technology," Marcus observed as Zara demonstrated how her suit could interface with his equipment, providing more detailed sensor readings. "That adaptive material alone would revolutionize human manufacturing. And your approach to problem-solving would transform our science," Zara replied. "We are taught to follow established procedures. You create new procedures when the old ones don't work." As they worked together to improve the camp's defenses, their conversation turned to more personal topics. Zara spoke of her childhood in Sapondinte, the deep cities where bioluminescent gardens created breathtaking displays of living art. Marcus shared memories of Earth's skies, of rain and snow, and the feeling of wind carrying the scent of growing things. "I always dreamed of seeing other worlds," Zara confessed as they sat together watching the alien constellations. "But I never imagined I would be stranded on one with a member of a species I was taught to fear." "And now?" Marcus asked softly. Zara turned to look at him, her violet eyes reflecting the starlight. "Now I think I'm beginning to understand what my people have been so afraid of. It's not that humans are dangerous predators. It's that you represent something we've lost, something we've forgotten how to be." "What's that?" "Free," she said simply. "You make choices based on what you believe is right, not what others tell you to believe. You question everything, challenge everything, improve everything. To a society built on rigid order, That kind of freedom is terrifying. Marcus reached out and gently touched her hand, surprised by the warmth of her skin and the subtle energy patterns that seemed to flow beneath the surface. Freedom isn't something to be afraid of. It's something worth fighting for. Zara didn't pull away from his touch. Instead, she intertwined her fingers with his, marveling at the simple human gesture of connection. My people sent search teams after me. They will come here eventually. When they do, they will want to take me back for neural adjustment. And they will want to study you. Let them come, Marcus said with quiet determination. I'm not afraid of your people, and I won't let them hurt you. Besides, maybe it's time they learned the truth about humans. You would fight for me? Zara asked, surprised by the fierce protectiveness in his voice. I'd fight for anyone's right to be themselves, Marcus replied, but especially for someone brave enough to question everything they've been taught in search of truth. Zara's skin shifted to warm golden tones, and Marcus was beginning to understand that this was a sign of positive emotions in her species. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the stars and planning for whatever challenges the next day might bring. Neither of them realized it yet, but their bond was already becoming something that would transcend species differences. In finding each other, they had discovered something that both their civilizations desperately needed: proof that understanding and cooperation were possible between even the most different of beings. As the night deepened and the strange sounds of the alien forest surrounded them, Marcus and Zara took turns keeping watch, protecting each other and learning that sometimes the most important discoveries came not from scientific study, but from simply opening your heart to the possibility that everything you thought you knew might be wrong. The hunt begins. The morning alarm for Marcus's perimeter sensors shattered the peaceful quiet of dawn. Both he and Zara jerked awake from their respective sleeping areas, instantly alert as the device's urgent beeping indicated multiple large signatures approaching from the north. Through the crystalline leaves above, they could see sleek, silver shapes moving silently through the purple sky. Velothi search vessels, Zara whispered, her skin immediately shifting to pale, anxious tones. 3 of them, running full sensor sweeps. They've found me. Marcus was already in motion, his engineering mind shifting into emergency mode. He quickly began shutting down non-essential systems and activating the camouflage protocols he'd developed over his weeks on the planet. How long do we have? Minutes at most, Zara replied, hastily gathering her few possessions. Their scanners can penetrate most natural cover, but the mineral deposits in this region might interfere with their readings if we can reach the caves to the south. Caves? Marcus paused in his packing to look at her with interest. You didn't mention caves before. Zara's expression was apologetic but urgent. I've been exploring while you worked on your traps. There's an extensive underground network about 2 kilometers from here. The rock formations contain high concentrations of neutronium compounds that naturally block most sensor sweeps. Marcus grabbed his portable toolkit and emergency supplies while Zara activated some kind of stealth field around herself. Her form became hazy and difficult to focus on, like looking at someone through water. Impressive, Marcus said, shouldering his pack. Can you extend that to cover me? I can try, but the field generators in my suit weren't designed for non-Velothi physiology. It might not hold for long. Zara concentrated and Marcus felt a strange tingling sensation as the stealth field expanded to encompass him. Looking down at his hands, he could see they had become translucent. They moved quickly but carefully through the forest, using the dense vegetation and Marcus's knowledge of the local terrain to avoid open areas where the search vessels might spot them. The ships above were methodical in their search pattern, using broad-spectrum scanners that painted the jungle in sweeping beams of blue-white light. Your people are thorough, Marcus observed as they paused behind a cluster of massive tree trunks, watching one of the vessels hover directly over his abandoned camp. The Velothi do not accept failure, Zara replied grimly. They will search every square meter of this continent if necessary, and when they find us, they will take me back for neural adjustment and you for interrogation. What kind of interrogation? Zara's skin darkened with distress. Complete neural mapping. They'll extract every memory, every thought, every piece, of knowledge about human capabilities and intentions. It's not a process that leaves the subject intact. Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the morning air. Then we better make sure they don't catch us. They continued their journey toward the caves, but the search vessels were adapting their patterns, gradually tightening their net. Marcus noticed that Zara's stealth field was beginning to flicker, the strain of maintaining it for both of them, clearly taking its toll. "The field is failing," Zara admitted, breathing heavily. "My suit's power cells aren't designed for extended use of the stealth systems." Marcus looked around, his engineer's eye taking in the landscape with new urgency. They were still 1/2 kilometer from the caves, crossing a series of rocky ridges that offered little natural cover. Behind them he could hear the distinctive whine of Velothi engines growing closer. There, he pointed to a narrow ravine that cut across their path. "If we can reach that geological formation, I might be able to create some interference for their scanners." They scrambled down into the ravine, and Marcus immediately began examining the rock walls with his portable scanner. The readings made him smile for the first time since the alarm had sounded. "Perfect," he muttered, pulling a small device from his toolkit. "These rocks are loaded with metallic compounds. If I can create a resonance cascade in the mineral matrix, you're going to overload their sensors," Zara realized, watching with fascination as Marcus quickly assembled what looked like a combination of human technology and local materials. "Force them to recalibrate their equipment." "Exactly. It won't stop them permanently, but it should buy us enough time to reach those caves." Marcus attached his device to a particularly rich vein of metallic ore and activated it. The effect was immediate and spectacular. A pulse of energy spread through the rocky ridge, causing the metallic deposits to emit a brilliant display of electromagnetic interference. Above them, the search vessels suddenly veered off course as their navigation systems were overwhelmed by the false signals. "Brilliant!" Zara exclaimed, her skin shifting to admiring golden tones. "You turned the planet itself into a jamming device." They used the confusion to cover the remaining distance to the cave entrance, a narrow opening in the side of a cliff face that looked natural but showed signs of ancient artificial modification. As they squeezed through the entrance, Marcus marveled at the smooth, precisely curved walls that spoke of advanced engineering. "These caves aren't natural," he observed, running his hands along the seamless stone surfaces. "Someone built this place." "The previous inhabitants?" Zara explained, leading him deeper into the tunnel system. "This planet was once home to an advanced civilization. They vanished thousands of years ago, leaving only these underground complexes. The tunnels opened into vast chambers filled with the remnants of ancient technology. Massive, crystalline structures rose from the floor like frozen trees, their surfaces still humming with residual energy. Marcus's scanner went wild trying to process the readings from the alien machinery. "This is incredible," Marcus breathed, studying a device that looked like a fusion of organic and mechanical components. "These power levels, the integration of living and artificial systems, this represents technology centuries ahead of anything humans have developed." Zara moved to a control panel that seemed to recognize her presence, activating with a soft chime when she approached. "The energy signatures are similar to Velothi biotechnology, but far more advanced. Perhaps these beings were related to my people somehow." As they explored the ancient complex, they discovered chambers filled with data cores that still functioned, displaying holographic records of the vanished civilization. The beings who had built this place were indeed related to the Velothi, but they had evolved beyond the rigid social structures that now defined Zara's people. "Look at this," Zara said, activating a historical display that showed the ancient inhabitants working alongside beings that looked remarkably human. They weren't afraid of other species. They collaborated with them, learned from them. Marcus studied the holographic records with growing excitement. "These aren't just historical documents. They're proof that cooperation between our species is not only possible, but has happened before." Their exploration was interrupted by a distant rumbling that echoed through the cave system. The Velothi search teams had apparently recovered from Marcus's electromagnetic interference and were now using more aggressive tactics. "Ground-penetrating scanners," Zara identified, recognizing the sound patterns. They're mapping the cave system from the surface. It won't take them long to find the entrances. Marcus was already studying the ancient control systems, his mind racing with possibilities. These caves aren't just hiding places. They're a defensive complex. Look at these power conduits, these control interfaces. This whole mountain is one massive machine. But we don't know how to operate it, Zara pointed out, though her scientific curiosity was clearly aroused by the implications. Maybe not directly, Marcus agreed. But human engineering principles are pretty universal. Every system has inputs, outputs, and control mechanisms. Sometimes you just need to think about the problem differently. As the rumbling above grew, more intense, Marcus began working with the ancient technology, using his understanding of human engineering principles to decipher the alien systems. Zara assisted, her knowledge of Velothi biotechnology helping to bridge the gaps in their understanding. Unlikely alliance. The ancient control chamber deep within the mountain thrummed with awakening power as Marcus and Zara worked frantically to understand the alien technology. Above them, the Velothi search teams had intensified their efforts, and the rumbling of heavy excavation equipment echoed through the stone corridors. The power core is responding to our input, Zara reported, her hands dancing over crystalline interfaces that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. But the system is requiring some kind of biometric confirmation from both our species simultaneously. Marcus studied the readings on his scanner, noting the energy patterns that seemed to mirror both human neural activity and Velothi biological rhythms. It's like the original builders designed this place to only function when both species worked together. Smart security measure. A new sound joined the excavation noise above, the distinctive whine of heavy-duty mining lasers. Dust and small rocks began falling from the ceiling as the Velothi forces started cutting their way directly through the mountain. They've switched to thermal extraction protocols, Zara identified, her skin shifting to alarmed, pale tones. They're going to carve a direct path to our location. We have perhaps an hour before they break through. Marcus placed his hand on what appeared to be a human-sized control surface, while Zara positioned herself at a corresponding Velothi interface. The moment both made contact, the entire chamber exploded into activity. Holographic displays filled the air, showing not just the current tactical situation but also detailed scans of the Velothi ships above. Incredible, Marcus breathed, studying the readouts. This system is showing me everything about their technology, their weapons systems, even their crew complement. 3 ships, 47 personnel total, armed with standard exploration equipment, but no heavy combat systems. They came expecting to retrieve a wayward scientist, not to fight a war, Zara observed. But look at these power readings from the mountain complex. Marcus, this isn't just a hiding place, it's a planetary defense system. The holographic displays showed the true scope of the ancient installation. The mountain was honeycombed with weapon systems, shield generators, and communication arrays that could reach across star systems. It was a fortress that had been waiting millennia for someone to awaken it. The question is, Marcus said thoughtfully, do we use this power to drive your people away, or do we use it to bring them to the negotiating table? Before Zara could answer, a new voice echoed through the chamber, speaking in the musical tones of the Velothi language. They looked up to see a holographic projection materializing near the entrance. 3 figures in formal Velothi attire, flanked by armed guards. Research Assistant Zara of the Third Reef. The central figure spoke, switching to English when he noticed Marcus. You will surrender yourself immediately for transport back to proper medical facilities. Your extended exposure to this primitive human has clearly affected your judgment. Zara stepped forward, her skin shifting to defiant crimson patterns. Council Leader Thax, my judgment has never been clearer. The human standing beside me has shown me more truth about our universe in these few days than decades of your rigid teachings ever did. Marcus moved to stand beside her, his presence calm, but unmistakably protective. I'm Marcus Chen, and I assume you're here to take Zara back against her will. The human speaks, Thax said with obvious distaste. How fascinating. We had not expected your species to have developed language beyond basic grunts and territorial displays. Your information about humans seems to be a little outdated, Marcus replied with a slight smile. We've actually progressed quite a bit since the grunting stage. We've developed space travel, advanced mathematics, and something your people apparently haven't discovered yet, the ability to question our own assumptions. The Velathi leader's expression darkened. Your arrogance is typical of your species. You have captured one of our researchers and filled her mind with primitive notions. She will be returned for proper neural adjustment. Over my dead body, Marcus said simply, and the ancient weapon systems around the chamber hummed to life in response to his emotional state. Zara noticed the reaction immediately. Marcus, the system is keyed to our combined biometrics, but it's also responding to our emotional resonance. When you felt protective, it activated defensive protocols. Then let's give it something to really respond to, Marcus said, focusing on his determination to protect Zara and prove that humans were more than the Velathi believed. The effect was dramatic. The holographic display suddenly shifted to show detailed analyses of human achievements. The first moon landing, the cure for cancer, the development of faster-than-light travel, works of art and literature that demonstrated the depth of human creativity and compassion. Thax and his companion stared in shock as the data streamed past, showing a species that was anything but primitive. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable, pulled from databases the Velathi had maintained for centuries, but apparently never properly analyzed. This is impossible, one of the other council members whispered. The data shows technological and cultural complexity rivaling our own civilization. The data shows what happens when a species embraces change instead of fearing it, Zara said firmly. The data shows what happens when a species embraces change instead of fearing it, Zara said firmly. Marcus and his people represent everything we could become if we stopped clinging to outdated fears and rigid thinking. Marcus stepped closer to the holographic projection, his engineer's mind working to maximize the impact of this moment. Council Leader Thax, you came here expecting to find a primitive predator holding your researcher captive. Instead, you've discovered that your entire understanding of humanity is based on incomplete information. The question is, are you brave enough to admit you were wrong? The ancient chamber's systems continued responding to their emotional states, now displaying real-time comparisons between human and Velathi technological approaches. Where Velathi science was methodical and rigid, human innovation was adaptive and creative. Where Velathi society emphasized conformity, human culture celebrated diversity and individual achievement. Look at these engineering solutions, Marcus continued, gesturing to holographic displays showing human space habitats and terraforming projects. We don't just adapt to our environment, we adapt our environment to us. And when we encounter problems we can't solve alone, we collaborate. We bring together different perspectives, different skills, different ways of thinking. Thax was studying the displays with obvious discomfort, his rigid worldview being challenged by undeniable evidence. Even if your species has achieved some technological sophistication, that does not change the fact that you have corrupted one of our researchers. Zara requires immediate medical intervention to reverse the damage done by extended contact with your kind. The only damage that's been done, Zara interjected, her skin blazing with angry scarlet patterns, is to my patience with our people's willful ignorance. Marcus hasn't corrupted me, he's educated me. He's shown me what it means to think freely, to question assumptions, to grow beyond the limitations others try to impose. The mountain complex suddenly shuddered as another series of mining lasers struck from above. The Velathi search teams were getting closer, and Marcus realized they were running out of time for diplomatic solutions. Your ground teams are still trying to cut through to us, Marcus observed, checking the tactical displays. Even while we're having this conversation, you're preparing to take us by force. That doesn't seem very civilized to me. Thax's expression remained stern. Standard protocols must be followed. Zara will be returned for treatment, and you will be taken for study. Your neural patterns could provide valuable insight into human cognitive development. Neural extraction, Zara translated, her voice tight with anger. They want to dissect your mind, Marcus. It's not a process that leaves the subject intact. Marcus felt a surge of protective fury that made the ancient weapon systems hum with barely contained power. Let me make something clear, Council Leader. I'm not some specimen for your scientists to study. I'm a sentient being with rights, thoughts, feelings, and people who care about me. And I'll be damned if I let you or anyone else treat Zara like a malfunctioning piece of equipment that needs to be repaired. The chamber's defensive systems responded to his emotional intensity by powering up to full combat readiness. Energy readings spiked across the board, and warning indicators began flashing throughout the Velothi ships above. Fascinating, one of the Velothi scientists said, studying his instruments with professional interest despite the danger. The human's emotional responses are triggering sympathetic reactions in the ancient technology. The biometric locks aren't just security, measures their empathic interfaces, which means, Zara realized, that this entire complex was designed to respond to genuine cooperation and emotional connection between our species. The original builders didn't just work together, they cared about each other. Marcus took her hand, their combined touch causing the chamber's central display to shift to a new set of historical records. These showed the final days of the ancient civilization, when they had faced a planetary catastrophe that required the combined efforts of both species to survive. They succeeded, Marcus said softly, studying the data. Working together, they managed to save their world from a geological disaster that should have destroyed all life on the planet. But look at this. The effort required them to permanently merge their technologies and their societies. And now, Zara added, her voice filled with wonder, that same catastrophe is beginning again. The planet's core is destabilizing, just like it did thousands of years ago. The tactical displays suddenly shifted to show seismic readings from across the continent. Deep underground, massive tectonic forces were building toward a cataclysmic release that would reshape the planet's surface and atmosphere. Estimated time to critical cascade failure, the ancient system announced in both English and Velothi, 72 hours. Thax and his companions stared at the readings in shock. This is impossible. Our geological surveys showed no signs of planetary instability. Your surveys were conducted from orbit, Marcus pointed out. These readings are coming from sensors placed directly in the planetary core. The ancient builders were monitoring geological conditions for millennia. They knew this was coming. And they built this complex to handle it, Zara added, studying the defensive and engineering systems surrounding them. But it requires operators from both our species to function. That's why the biometric locks exist, not to keep people out, but to ensure the right people could get in when the time came. The chamber shuddered again as the Velothi mining equipment broke through another layer of rock, getting closer to their position. But now the immediate threat seemed less important than the global catastrophe bearing down on all of them. Council Leader, Marcus said urgently, your people have a choice. You can continue trying to capture us and extract information through force, or you can recognize that we're all facing a problem that's bigger than our political differences. This planet is about to tear itself apart, and the only way to stop it is if our species work together. Thax looked at his fellow council members, clearly struggling with concepts that challenged everything he'd been taught about humans and about proper Velothi behavior. Even if what you say is true, the protocols are clear. Individual concerns cannot override collective decisions. Then change the collective decision, Zara said firmly. You have the authority to declare this an emergency situation requiring immediate adaptation of protocols. Use it. The risk, Thax began. The risk of not acting, Marcus interrupted, is the complete destruction of this planet and everyone on it, including your search teams. The risk of acting is having to admit that humans aren't the monsters you thought we were. Which risk are you willing to take? Above them, the mining equipment suddenly went silent. A new voice came through the communication system, younger, more urgent than Thax's formal tones. Council Leader, we're reading massive energy buildups across the planet's surface. Whatever's happening down there, it's affecting geological stability across multiple continents. Our ships are detecting seismic activity that's off any scale in our databases. Marcus and Zara exchanged glances. both realizing that events were now moving beyond anyone's ability to control them through politics or protocol. The planet itself was forcing the issue, demanding that ancient alliances be renewed, or everyone would face the consequences. Council Leader Thax, Marcus said quietly, in about 70 hours, the question of whether humans are dangerous isn't going to matter anymore. The only question that will matter is whether we're capable of working together to survive. Your people have a chance to be part of the solution, or you can stick to your protocols and watch everything burn. The fate of 3 species, human, Velothi, and the ancient builders who had planned for this moment, now hung in the balance, waiting for one stubborn council leader to choose between the comfort of old prejudices and the terrifying promise of a new future. New horizons. The ancient control chamber had become a hive of frantic activity, as teams of human engineers and Velothi scientists worked side by side, their combined efforts focused on preventing a planetary catastrophe that grew more imminent by the hour. Council Leader Thax had finally made his decision when the seismic readings became too overwhelming to ignore, officially declaring a state of emergency that suspended normal protocols. Marcus stood before the primary control interface, sweat beading on his forehead as he worked to synchronize human engineering principles with Velothi biotechnology and the ancient systems that predated both civilizations. Beside him, Zara coordinated the efforts of mixed teams throughout the mountain complex, her skin shifting between colors as she processed information from dozens of different sources simultaneously. Core temperature is still rising, reported Dr. Keth, a Velothi geologist who had initially been part of the search team but now found himself working frantically to save the planet. At current rates, we have less than 18 hours before the cascade becomes irreversible. The stabilization matrix is responding, Marcus called out, his hands flying over controls that seemed to blend organic and mechanical components seamlessly. But we need more power to reach the deeper core layers. The ancient builders designed this system to work, but they assumed a larger population to operate it. Thax approached the central console, his formal council robes replaced by practical work attire as he studied the holographic displays. Our ships could provide additional power by linking their reactors to the mountain's energy grid. That would work, Marcus agreed, but it means committing your entire fleet to this operation. If something goes wrong, you'll lose everything. If we do nothing, Thax replied grimly, we lose everything anyway. The seismic disruption would destroy our ships whether they're linked to your systems or not. Zara looked up from her coordination station, her expression mixing hope with exhaustion. The integration protocols are working better than we hoped. Human adaptability and Velothi precision are complementing each other perfectly. We're achieving efficiency levels the ancient systems were designed for but never expected to see. Throughout the complex, the cooperation between the 2 species had evolved from wary necessity to genuine collaboration. Human engineers marveled at Velothi biotechnology that could grow new components in real time, while Velothi scientists were amazed by human creativity that found solutions to problems that had seemed insurmountable. Power coupling established, announced Lieutenant Torres, a human technician who had been part of Marcus's original research mission and had arrived with a rescue ship just as the crisis began. Velothi reactors are now feeding directly into the planetary stabilization grid. The effect was immediate and spectacular. Throughout the mountain, ancient crystalline structures blazed to life with power levels not seen for millennia. Deep, beneath the planet's surface, massive field generators began the delicate work of redirecting tectonic forces and cooling the overheated planetary core. It's working, Zara breathed, watching the seismic readings begin to stabilize for the first time in days. Core temperature is dropping, tectonic stress is decreasing. We're actually doing it. Marcus allowed himself a moment of relief before focusing on the next challenge. The immediate crisis is under control, but this is just the beginning. The planetary systems need constant monitoring and adjustment. Someone has to stay here permanently to operate the complex. A joint colony, Thax realized, understanding the implications. Humans and Velothi working together on a permanent basis. More than that, Zara added, studying the ancient historical records that continue to reveal new information. According to these files, The original builders didn't just cooperate. They integrated their societies completely. Shared technology, shared knowledge, shared families. The word families hung in the air with special significance. Over the past week, Marcus and Zara had grown closer than either had expected, their partnership in crisis revealing deeper feelings that transcended species boundaries. They hadn't spoken openly about it yet, but everyone in the complex could see the bond that had formed between them. The integration protocols include provisions for genetic compatibility enhancement, Dr. Keth reported, his scientific curiosity overcoming cultural programming. The ancient builders developed methods for successful reproduction between species. The children showed enhanced capabilities from both genetic lines. Marcus and Zara exchanged glances that were charged with possibility and promise. The idea that their feelings for each other could lead to something even more meaningful was both thrilling and terrifying. One step at a time, Marcus said softly, though his eyes never left Zara's face. First we save the planet, then we figure out what comes next. The next several hours were a blur of coordinated effort as teams throughout the complex fine-tuned the planetary stabilization systems. Human creativity found ways to optimize ancient technology, while Velothi precision ensured that every adjustment was implemented perfectly. The cooperation was so successful that both species began to wonder why they had ever been afraid of each other. As the crisis finally passed and the planet settled into stable geological patterns, the assembled teams gathered in the main chamber, for what felt like a celebration and a new beginning rolled into one. The planetary defense system is fully operational, Marcus announced to the mixed crowd of humans and Velothi. Core temperature has stabilized, tectonic activity is within. Normal parameters and the monitoring systems will alert us to any future problems long before they become critical. Thack stepped forward, his bearing formal but his expression warmer than anyone had seen before. On behalf of the Velothi Science Council, I formally apologize for our misunderstanding of human capabilities and intentions. Your species has proven to be not only intelligent and capable, but also generous and honorable in ways our previous assessments never imagined. And on behalf of humanity, Marcus replied, I'm grateful for the chance to prove that our species can work together instead of fighting each other. This planet has shown us what's possible when we combine our strengths instead of focusing on our differences. Zara moved to stand between them, her skin glowing with patterns that both species now recognized as joy and hope. The ancient builders left us more than just a planetary defense system. They left us a blueprint for the future. Proof that different species can not only coexist, but can create something better together than either could achieve alone. As if summoned by her words, the chamber's central display activated one final time, showing not technical data or historical records, but a simple message in both human and Velothi script. Welcome home. 3 months later, the planetary colony had grown into a thriving community that served as both a research station and a symbol of interspecies cooperation. The settlement combined human architectural innovation with Velothi biotechnology, creating structures that seemed to grow from the landscape itself, while providing every comfort both species required. Marcus and Zara stood on a balcony overlooking the main colony plaza, watching as human and Velothi children played together in games that combined elements from both cultures. The sight never failed to amaze them, proof that the next generation would grow up seeing cooperation as natural rather than revolutionary. The integration process is proceeding ahead of schedule, Zara reported, though her attention was more focused on Marcus than on her data pad. The council has approved permanent settlement status, and 3 more joint colonies are being planned for other worlds. And the personal integration process? Marcus asked with a smile, pulling her closer against his side. Zara's skin shifted to warm golden tones as she looked up at him. Dr. Keth confirms that the genetic compatibility treatments are working perfectly. Our children will have the best of both species, human adaptability and creativity combined with Velothi longevity and biotechnological affinity. Children, plural? Marcus raised an eyebrow with amusement. The ancient builders were apparently quite prolific, Zara replied with a mischievous expression. I thought we should honor their example. Their conversation was interrupted by a chime from Marcus's communication device. Marcus, we're getting some interesting readings from the deep core monitors. Nothing dangerous, but you might want to take a look. Duty calls. Marcus sighed, but he was smiling as he said it. The work of maintaining the planetary systems was challenging and rewarding in ways he'd never expected when he first crash-landed on this world. I'll come with you, Zara said. The readings might correlate with some biometric data I've been tracking. As they walked toward the control center, hand in hand, other colonists nodded respectfully. Marcus and Zara had become symbols of successful integration, but more importantly, they had become the heart of a community that was writing a new chapter in the history of both their species. The ancient builders had planned well when they designed their systems to require cooperation between species. They had understood that the greatest achievements came not from individual brilliance or technological superiority, but from the willingness to work together, to trust each other, and to build something larger than any one group could create, alone. In the depths of the planetary control center, ancient systems hummed with the steady rhythm of a world at peace. The trap that had brought Marcus and Zara together had become the foundation for a future neither species had dared to imagine. And in the growing families of the colony, human and Velethi children learned that the universe was vast enough for all kinds of intelligence, all forms of beauty, and all expressions of love. The story that had begun with accidental capture had become a legend of intentional cooperation, proving that sometimes the most important discoveries came not from seeking the unknown, but from opening your heart to the possibilities that were right in front of you all along.